Hello, and welcome to the demonstration of the sync panel element, which is a new element that will be added to the Nitrogen web framework for Erlang in version 2.3. The purpose of this element is to provide a ultra simple tool for automating real-time updates. While Nitrogen already has a solid asynchronous through Comet and soon to be WebSockets. It already has that baked into the core of the framework. This particular sync panel element provides an even simpler mechanism for providing real-time updates based on user input um, and whatnot. So this is the reason that this was built actually was to accommodate this particular use case that we're going to demonstrate here. So what we're going to be demonstrating is adding real-time updating to all connected users viewing the tournament system in the BracketPal League and Tournament Management System. And we'll be doing this showing some live code from the actual site itself. And obviously we're running on a test server here. We're not going to be running on the live site and changing stuff on the fly because that's that's frivolous. But what we're going to be doing here is demonstrating how easily we can convert this from your more standard site where you have to press reload or press refresh to see the latest updates to the page versus the few lines of code that we're going to change here that will ultimately make this completely real-time updating for both logged-in administrators and for non-logged-in users, like say parents who have to look up to see where their kids are, which court their kids are playing on, or what their play schedule is, that kind of deal. So I'll quickly demonstrate here what we got going on. And I'm not going to explain how this whole site works, obviously, because that's out of the scope of this. So we're going to kind of blast through here, and you're just going to have to, you'll just see changes happening, but you won't necessarily know what they mean. So anyways, we'll start with a little side-by-side. I have Firefox Nightly on the left and Chrome on the right here. And you'll notice that if we'll go in and we'll do something real simple here. Let's delete, let's record one match. So we record a match here. We'll say Brew Crew 1, 25 to 15. This automatically updates and goes in pink. But you'll notice nothing changed over here. It started at saying 6 remaining. We just, nothing really changed. And we can go and view this pool, and we'll see, okay, well, it shows this. Similarly, we make this change here. Let's update this next match. And we'll say Planners Warts 1, 15 to 23. It was a close one. We click Save. Notice how this updates to green, but this has not yet done that. But if we refresh the page, it will appropriately update. And the purpose of what this sync panel element is, what it's for, is so that whenever we make any changes here, it'll automatically update here, and it'll be done so with minimal, ultra minimal coding changes. The example being that on the live system, I was able to add this automatic synchronization functionality with the addition of something like 30 lines of code. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the code right away. We'll go back to the main tournament page here so we can work with something functional. We're going to jump into the code here. So we're going to open up the tournament. And one of the reasons that this was really easy to add was that whenever we have any code, any pages, any action that's doing anything, like in this case deleting a playoff, or where does this go here? Oh, I'm sorry. So you'll notice within this A event function, at the end of a lot of these functions, these function calls that make changes to things like deleting a division or creating a pool group, all that stuff ends with this refresh call. And this refresh call is really quite simple. This refresh call simply takes the current tournament div, the current tournament panel, and just replaces it with the contents of draw tournament, with the draw tournament function. And then it does a process tooltips thing. So it's really quite simple. So basically, anytime we make any changes to the tournament, we call this refresh function. And what we want to do is we want to simplify this so that the refresh function doesn't actually have to do anything too interesting. So we have this draw tournament function, which is kind of the core of what we're doing here. And all this draw tournament function does is it loads information from the database, generates anything that it needs to, like, prompting to print, and then it draws the actual tournament, and we don't care about the implementation there. What we're going to do here is we're going to wrap this body in a sync panel element. The sync panel, and we're going to give it a pool. Now for this pool, for the pool name, this is the name of a comet, of a global comet pool in nitrogen. So in our case, we want to make something that's going to be relative, that's going to be unique to the tournament itself. So let's call this, we'll give it a tuple. We'll call it tournament. We'll tag it with tournament. We're going to give it the site ID because in this case we have lots of sites that all run from the same VM. We need to identify that a tournament is assigned to a particular site. And then, of course, the tournament ID itself, which is so that saving the contents on some tournament won't update this tournament, and vice versa. We also want to add some triggers. In this case, we're just going to call the trigger main. We don't need more than one. Just a single trigger is fine, but it still has to be a list. And then finally, we need to define a body function. A body fun we define, in this case, instead of calling draw tournament, we use this syntax, the fun module. Now, the reason that we're doing module, specifying the module, rather than the more succinct Erlang syntax, which works, rather than using this, we're calling this the module first, and that's to take advantage of the live code updating stuff. So that if we need to change the draw tournament function, this will automatically reload the new draw tournament next time the page, or next time a refresh message is sent to the sync panel. So that's the first step, is just getting that sync panel set up. And then we need to update the refresh function. We need to update that refresh function to make the proper call. So what we want to do here is we want to update it with element sync panel refresh. And then we need to give it the comet pool that we called it, which was site ID, tournament, and tournament ID. And we also need to send a trigger. And the trigger that we used to update it was main. The last thing that we need to make sure now is this process tooltips function is going to be kind of hanging out here, and we don't want to deal with that anymore. Let's move that. Let's actually move that into that draw tournament function. And what this will do, we don't really care too much about this, but all this is just going to call a JavaScript function after all of this stuff gets, or I'm sorry, after this gets rendered. But we want to make sure it gets called after it, so we call it with WF defer, which defers it on the process queue, or in the a priority queue. So it will only call after all the other JavaScript is run with the update. So if we did everything right, let's turn on sync here, and there we go. So it looks like that worked. So let's just make sure we're not crashing anything here. Oh, page loads just fine. So now with that one change, we should theoretically be able to update something and have it automatically reflect. So we'll do something simple here. We're going to delete a playoff bracket. We messed up setting up the playoff bracket. We're just going to delete it and create a new one. So let's say we have to delete the gold playoff bracket. So we click this delete. It pops up. Do we want to delete? Yes, delete. And it didn't do anything. What are we missing here? Oh, you know what? So here's an example of why you abstract some of this stuff away. So let's call it this comet pool. And we're going to call it tournament site ID. So what ended up happening was in this reference, in this case, we have tournament site ID, tournament ID. Whereas here, we went site ID, tournament, tournament ID. We reversed the order of the arguments or the elements of the tuple. So let's call this comet pool. We can stick with main, that's fine. Tournament ID. And then here, comet pool. So we get the okay. So tournament. So it recompiled. We just got a little warning, but we can ignore that. So let's go ahead and refresh each of these pages. Okay, we've refreshed them. Yeah, okay. So now let's go ahead and recreate. We deleted that comment pool. So let's create playoff bracket. Or we deleted that playoff bracket. We're going to create a new playoff bracket. We're going to call it the gold playoffs. And that's going to be seeds 1 through 4 from the pool. We click create playoff. If we click it here, it should automatically add itself here on the other connected client. And there it goes. Look at that. So that completely worked exactly the way that we were expecting. Now, however, one of the problems that we have, so before I jump ahead there, you can see that all of these changes that we did ultimately are reflected immediately on the on this page. So we could, anything we do, if we were to delete the silver playoffs, it'll immediately remove from this one. And we'll just go recreate the playoff bracket. Silver playoffs, seeds 5 through 8, and it adds it right back. Now, this is great. It's for a single, so far we've already added like five lines of code, something like that, or 6 lines of code. But we still need to be able to interact with it on a multi, because there's multiple multiple pages involved with this. So even though we're on this page, say we were to load the pool information and start recording results. Notice how it says 4 remaining here. If we update this, say 25 to 21, we save it. This match, even though we've got 3 matches finished, there should be 3 matches to go. This should have automatically updated to 3 remaining. And the only reason it hasn't done that yet is because we haven't updated the page to accommodate that. So we want to go in and we want to recreate, we want to add the sync panel to other pages within the site. So one of the things, before I go jumping into here, is having to create the sync panel element on each page is already going to get tedious, and I'll show you what that's going to be here. So tournament pool, there we go. So on tournament pool here, let's see. Tournament pool, let's have a look here. Main, we'll just render a template. So we want to look for body. There it is. So this is where we would put this. This is where a simple place we could put this. So we could call sync panel pool equals, and we'll just reference that tournament module that we had. Comment pool triggers equals main. Oh, and body equals body fun equals function module normal body. So already we're getting somewhere where this is automatically going to be updated because it's going to be linked to this triggers main thing. But reproducing this code, having to type sync panel pool triggers main when it's the same thing on each page kind of sucks. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to abstract it away. So let's do a little bit of mini refactoring here. We're going to call this we'll call this sync wrapper. Okay. Now one last thing we need to make sure that we do, and this is not totally obvious, is this tournament ID function. If it's called locally like this on this tournament module, is not going to work. We need to call the tournament ID function on each page. So the simple way to do that is to do this. Reference the page module of the request, and then we can call mod tournament ID to identify our comment pool. So that's an easy way to solve that problem. We'll also add one more function here just to simplify this, since we're going to end up calling the sync refresh function on every one of these pages as well, and it doesn't change. So we'll do the same thing. WF. Nope, we don't need to do that. We can just do element sync panel refresh comment pool main. Then where we define this refresh function, we want to replace that with our sync refresh function call, so that this just ends up calling up to here. Okay. Now we'll do the same here. So instead of one more place, we need to add our function here. So all we did here was we just replaced it, so we can go sync wrapper draw tournament fun draw tournament 0, and I forgot our module. So there we go. We just went and redefined that, and now what we can do on here is just do tournament tournament sync wrapper fun normal body 0, which we're just getting from here. Oop. There we go. Alright, so we got that. We got that compiling just fine. We don't need to make any other changes to here other than in the refresh function. So this refresh function is very simple. All it does is just replaces a pool wrapper. So we can call tournament sync refresh, which was the name of the function that we used on the tournament module. Sync refresh, tournament sync refresh. So we're just calling tournament sync refresh. The reason this works on each of these pages, each of these page modules, is because it's because the the pool that we're connected to for each of these sync panels is the same. We want to connect to the same comment pool because we want any changes on any page within the same tournament to update any other page within the tournament. Um, so that, if we make changes to the playoff brackets, people will automatically see it, and anyone looking the home page, for example, or the main tournament page, will see the number of remaining matches. Um, so the whole point is just so that any page in the tournament system automatically updates other pages in the tournament system. Um, so we can take advantage of that with the sync wrapper that calls sync panel. We give it the same comment pool. The trigger is always just main in this case, and then the body function we pass in, and the comment pool gets deduced based on the connected the connected client retrieves the site ID um, from the database, from the cache, and then the mod tournament ID also gets returned from the database, from the cache. Um, and we have to use this mod tournament ID capability on each page um, because the URL scheme on each page isn't necessarily exactly the same, so the tournament ID function is slightly different on each. So that's all explaining why we abstracted these away into these three new functions that we're working with. So we went and we updated the tournament pool and the main tournament page now. So theoretically, we should be able to update any page in the tournaments, or at least any page related to the tournament page and the pool page. And we'll go and I'll add all these same capabilities to the playoff brackets and to the finishing the divisions in a moment. But to give you an idea here, so let's go ahead and record another match. So now we should see that if when I save this, let me just double check, make sure I refreshed each of these pages. Okay, so all these pages now should be connected into the comment pool. So if I add this page and I refresh it, and we'll say, or I put in a score here. When I click save here, this should update to saying 2 remaining. Boom, there it goes. Super easy. So already we've got this multi synchronization thing going on. So let's finish this pool. Let's just say this pool is done. For whatever reason, we don't have to finish these last 2 matches. We're just going to say begin finishing pool. We finish the pool here. When we click finish pool, this should update to green and should say finished here. There it goes. Super easy. So already you can see that any administrator connected now will be able to immediately see the update, the current status of the site, or the current status of the tournament, without having to refresh the page. And that's, that's a major major boost for productivity of this, rather than having to be like, well, is this the latest version? I don't know. Let's refresh and see. This will automatically update on its own to provide all the necessary information that you need to complete the tournament. So there's a couple of other pages that we need to modify here, but I mean, already you've got to be getting an idea of just how simple this was. We've only added like 7 lines of code, and already we're simplifying this whole process. So let's see, we got a body function here, which calls this. So we want to change this. This actually does a lot. So let's go actual body, and we're gonna wrap this in a tournament sync wrapper fun module actual body. And then there's a refresh function, just like we have on every page. Tournament sync refresh. And now the playoff brackets should theoretically. So let's go ahead and finish this. Get the playoff brackets going here. So let's head back to the thing. We'll go to the view this pool, and we'll just finish the pool. We won't add any scores. We'll just finish it. Pool's finished. Immediately pops up on the other screen that the playoff brackets are ready to be printed, which we can do. So now if we were to, let's go ahead and we'll load this playoff bracket in one screen, we'll load this playoff bracket in the other. So if we go and record the winner here, and we say, okay, Brew Crew won, click save. This should immediately update over here. let's see, click save, and there it goes. Same thing here. And similarly, this is connected again to the home page, so it's got the number of games remaining, 2 remaining in gold, so we record it. This should immediately update to 1 remaining. Yep, 1 remaining match. We record the winner, the overall winner of this particular division. Click save, and sure enough. So I'm not going to go through demonstrating this on all the pages because you've got the idea. Literally all we're doing on each of these pages is adding this tournament sync wrapper call and adding the sync refresh call on each page in place of its standard refresh function. And all of that ends up doing is it wraps the content in a sync panel, which is connected to a comment pool, connected to a universal comment pool within this tournament, and is triggered by just a simple atom message that says main. And we're passing it in a function that function will get called each time the refresh needs to happen. So, and then the sync refresh function, all that does is that just initiates the refresh on all the connected clients. And this will work for any number of connected clients. You can and possibly will run into performance issues if you've got lots and lots of people all connected to the same screen, and then this triggers a refresh, and all of those connected clients refresh at the same time. If your data source or something is slow or doesn't have decent caching or something, then yeah, you could run into some performance issues. But in this particular use case, where the number of people viewing this, are probably less than 10, could be up to 100. It's not going to be a big performance issue. Erlang will be able to handle that just fine. So I hope that helps to define to show you just how capable this particular new element that will be introduced in Nitrogen 2.3. It is currently in Nitrogen Head on GitHub, but it is still it's still kind of in development. This is super brand new, so I can't guarantee it as that it's going to be that its API is fixed until it actually is officially released in 2.3. But for now, go ahead and play with it. It should be, if you want to check it out in GitHub, github.com/nitrogen or nitrogenproject.com. Takes you to the Nitrogen homepage, which takes you to documentation and whatnot. The documentation for this, because it's not currently live, there is documentation for it. It's in GitHub in the Nitrogen core module or repository. If you go to doc, org mode, elements, and sync panel, you can view the current documentation for the sync panel. Now the documentation's in org mode, and GitHub kind of messes with the layout a little bit, but this at least tells you, gives you an idea of how to run it. And there's also an article. I have a blog post. Nope, it's not currently public. It will be public after I post this video. But there will be an article that helps to helps walk you through this process of adding this to your own site or your own systems. So I hope you enjoyed the video. My name is Jesse Gum, and once again, this is for the Nitrogen Web Framework, and also my league and tournament management system, BracketPal. I'll just plug that here. If you're running leagues or tournaments, including esports, give me a call, send me a message on here, ping me on Twitter, and I'll get you hooked up. So, hope you enjoyed, and have a good night.